And a lot of people actually think of blogging as back in the day or that it's a dead form, but actually blogging is the most lucrative way I think that you can go about being a content creator. It's certainly the most lucrative way.
Welcome back to the show. So we have another episode for you of The Influencer Effect by SheSpeaks. As we've been talking about, we are really very much looking at the impact that influencers, social media influencers, women in particular, have been having on everything from how we take care of our health, to how we shop, to how we vote, to how we think about different issues. We know that people are following influencers on social media, and we are very much interested in understanding what the impact is that these influencers are having on us in all parts of the way that we do things. So in each episode, we'll be really diving into that a little bit further. Today's guest, we have on Alexandria Drozgowski, and she is the creator of The Foreign Fork, which is basically a channel that she created. It also includes a blog that was named by Sever Magazine. She is the winner of the 2019 Blog Awards. She does different recipes from around the world in different countries, and she features a different one on her blog and on her social media. And she recreates the recipe and talks about the history of the food in that region. You not only learn about the food, but you also learn about the culture. And it's a wonderful way for people to learn more about other countries and other cultures. But Alexandria had a slight mistake on one of her recipes, and she talks about how that mistake helped her go viral and all of the things that came out of that. She also talks about why a blog can be better for your brand and website than social media platforms in terms of your ownership, and we talk about what that means. She also talks about how she was able to make enough money from her blog while taking off several months to prepare for her wedding. And she still had full-time income because she was able to monetize her blog, even though she was not working on it. It's really quite amazing. She also talks about how to make money off of ads on your website, how to make sure your website has good SEO for Google and searchability, and how that one mistake on that Australian recipe went viral and then really led to a whole lot of opportunity for her. I'm excited for you to hear this conversation with Alexandria. If you're somebody who is interested in how influencers are making money off of what they do in the interest of maybe starting your own blog or social media account to make money off of, or if you know someone in your family that is interested in doing the same, please share this episode with them. So with that, we're going to jump right into it. Here we go. Alexandria, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Elisa. I'm so excited to be here.
I went and looked at your channel. I know I was just telling you this before we started. And of course, I want to eat everything that you make. How did you get started?
Thank you so much. First of all, that's a big compliment for a food blogger. So I really appreciate you saying that. I got started doing my food blog back in 2018. I had just graduated from college, and I spent 6 months after I graduated college before I got a full-time job. I wanted to see the world a little bit. So I backpacked Europe for about 6 months, and it was incredible. I loved it so much, but I did that alone. And so one of the ways that I thought would be good to make friends or meet people when I was in each new country was to take a cooking class in each country. Yeah, it was really fun. And I just found over time that I can learn so much about a country through its food. You can learn about the geography and the history, the religion, the culture, like all of that can be taught to you through the food of a country. So it was a really fun way for me to go into a new place and learn about it in a really unique way. So I had loved doing that when I was traveling. And when I came home, I had to get a job and I couldn't be eating all around the world anymore, which was sad. And so as a way to continue doing the thing that I loved, I started The Foreign Fork, where I'm cooking one meal from every country in the world. That is how it began.
That's amazing. So it started with a blog.
It did start
like a long form blog.
Yes.
Back old school, back in 2018, if that's
Yes.
considered old school. And then you still post on the blog in addition to the social channels?
Yes, absolutely. So I have had the blog since the beginning, but I've also been doing social media since the beginning too. So the same day that I secured my domain name for the Foreign Fork, I also got all of my social media handles as well. And I've been doing them all consistently the whole time. But it always began as this, and it still is this today, that my social media is a way to draw people back into the blog because that is where I host everything that's the most important. And that's where I want my readers to come ultimately.
I think that is so smart because we have talked to a lot of different influencers and creators who've had a struggle. I guess that's the best word for it, with the algorithms changing on the social
Yes.
platforms. And suddenly your reach is less than it was overnight. One of the platforms, Meta, could make a change, and
Yeah,
suddenly you're reaching a quarter of the audience that you used to be able to reach. So having the blog where it's an owned property, so to speak,
absolutely.
is so smart. Is that how you think of it as well? That having the blog, and why the blog is so important, is because you get to have that much more direct and consistent relationship with your audience?
Yes, definitely. I think the blog is important for a lot of reasons. That is one of the biggest reasons that I think it's important because, like you mentioned, the algorithms go up and down on all of these social media channels. And so, knowing that my readers have a consistent place where they know they can find me is really important. And then,
Mhm.
also, when it comes to monetization, I make the majority of my income by monetizing my blog as well. I think it's important for both of those reasons.
And if you could help the audience understand a little bit, how do you monetize the blog? Because I think so people are now so used to hearing about people monetizing their social media, but not necessarily a blog. And I would love for people to understand that a little better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like you mentioned, a lot of people think of social media now as being a content creator, and a lot of people actually think of blogging as like back in the day or that it's like a dead form. But actually, blogging on an actual like blog website is the most lucrative way I think that you can go about being a content creator, or one of the most lucrative ways, depending on how your business is structured. For me, it's certainly the most lucrative way. The way that it works is that once your blog has a certain percentage of readership or a certain number of readers or visitors every single month, you then become eligible to apply for ad networks.
Mm.
And those networks will put display ads onto your website. And so when your readers are scrolling through, for example, if someone came to my chocolate chip cookie recipe and they are scrolling through that on my website, they will scroll by the display ads that my ad agency has displayed there. And
Mhm.
every single time there's an eyeball on that ad, I get paid money for it.
Wow.
So it's wonderful because
Mhm.
it's passive income. Obviously, you have to have content on your website in order to have display ads. But for
Mhm.
example, I got married a couple of weeks ago and I took basically 6 months off of the blog. Like I did next to nothing because I was so busy planning the wedding. We had just moved to another state. We were flying home all the time to try to plan the wedding in another state. It was very stressful and I did next to nothing for my business. But because I had my website set up with content from the last 5 years, I have visitors coming from Google, and then I have those display ads. I was able to make a full time income from my website.
That's unbelievable. I just want to, first of all, stop and say congratulations. That is
Thank you so much.
great. What an amazing opportunity. And I don't know if you've seen this, but they've done a few studies that show when you ask kids, what do you want to be when you get older? The number one thing people want to be is like a content creator,
Oh
influencer.
my gosh, I you have no idea. I am a celebrity amongst my little cousins. I have 8 little cousins under the age of 11, and they get so excited. "Can we make a YouTube video together?" Like, they get so excited about it. So I definitely believe that statistic.
And it's wonderful because it also provides like flexibility. And in this day and age where you hear about companies downsizing all the time,
Oh, yeah.
it's not surprising that people are thinking, I want some things that is on my own terms, where I get to be the master of my own destiny. And I love that you are an example of how that can work. You mentioned that it's visitors from Google. Is that because of the SEO? How does that work?
Yes. So just for clarity, it's visitors, you get paid on the display ads, visitors to your site from any way of finding you. So
Mm-hmm.
part of that could be Google, part of it could be if they click the link in my bio from my
Mm-hmm.
Instagram, if they saw
Mm-hmm.
something they want to make on my Instagram, or if they just type Foreign Fork directly into their browser. All of those things, if they find my blog in any way, I do get paid for it from the display ads, but the majority of my visitors do come from Google. And yes, that is through SEO or search engine optimization, which is writing articles on your website that you write them in a specific way that Google thinks you're the best article about that topic on the internet and will put you number
Mm-hmm.
one, so that when somebody Googles that topic, your blog is number one. They click it, they see your display ads, you get paid.
That is awesome. And I know that a lot of bloggers have done affiliate links where
Mhm.
they get paid if somebody goes and buys something that's linked in a blog post. Do you also earn income from that?
It's funny that you asked me that because I was actually working on it maybe half an hour before we got on this call. Um, Affiliate links are typically something that I have not done in the past. They're not my personal favorite way to make income, especially because when it comes to having a bunch of different affiliate programs and then trying to promote them on your Instagram stories or things like that, it feels like a lot to manage to me. And it's not my favorite way to make income. Now, a lot of content creators make a lot of good income that way. So it's not to say
Hmm.
it's bad. It's just not personally my favorite.
Hmm.
However, what I was working on earlier today is I found a way where I could bulk edit all of my recipes because I'm a food blogger. So I could go in and type in an electric hand mixer and see every single post on my website that had an electric hand mixer and just add an affiliate link that it would like send it out to every single post. It was a lot easier. So I was experimenting with that today as something to add in to supplement income. In my experience, I don't typically, with the size of my like social medias and things, affiliate income would never be a full-time income for me, but it is something
Hmm.
to have a little extra.
Yeah. No,
But
that's awesome. And I hear you. It is also about how to be most efficient
Mhm.
about the time you spend. So you mentioned that you have socials, obviously, you have the social platforms and your handles there, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Pinterest. Like, which platforms are you active on?
Yes, all of those plus Facebook. So I
Hmm.
would say my favorites are Instagram and TikTok. It vacillates on the day which one is my favorite. Sometimes one of them is making me annoyed and I'm loving the other one, and then it goes back and forth. So I'd say Instagram and TikTok are my favorites. But then, yes, I also have a YouTube, a Pinterest, and a Facebook. I don't have Twitter or X or whatever it's called now. That I don't have. But other than that, I have the rest of them.
And then when you say that Instagram and TikTok are your favorites, are they your favorites because you're able to earn income off of them? Or is it more just it's a way to push your content out and drive people back to your blog?
So I would say Instagram is one of my favorites because I love the community that I've built on my Instagram stories.
Hmm.
So I think that it's really fun for me to talk about both blogging and then also my personal life and my wedding and my honeymoon and travels and that kind of stuff on my stories and really connect with my readers that way. So
Hmm.
that makes me feel just in general more connected to my audience. So that's why I like
Hmm.
Instagram. And then I like TikTok because I think the virality aspect of TikTok is really fun. I just enjoy being on TikTok as a consumer as well. It's one of my favorite platforms to create on. And also, when you asked about monetization, I do tend, when I work with brands, a lot of them right now are really leaning heavy into video, which is mostly TikTok and sometimes Instagram Reels. So when you're asking what's my favorite for monetization, it's definitely TikTok because that's what brands are looking for when they're partnering with bloggers.
Yeah. So brand deals, and that's a totally separate stream of income, right?
Yeah.
Because you have the ads that you put on your blog that you earn good income from. I know for a lot of influencers and creators, the brand deals are actually a big part of their income. Have you seen a lot more brand deals coming through just because the space is getting like a lot more investment?
Yes. First of all, now is this because my blog viewership has increased over the last 5 years, and that's why I'm seeing more reach out to me, probably. But
Mhm.
I also think that it's a large part and due to the fact that just influencer marketing and social media marketing is just continuing to grow and grow every year. So I think for
Mhm.
both of those reasons, it has become a lot more popular in general, and then also on my page as well. So I try not to oversaturate with it.
Yeah. You talked about TikTok and the
Mhm.
fact that you like the platform because it's fun and it's the viral nature of it. You had an instance where you inadvertently went viral in Australia. Can you talk about that?
Yes, I did have a very unique experience. On my blog, I'm cooking a meal from every country in the world. And so when I got to Australia, I tend to do a couple of different recipes from each country if possible. I try to do a main course and an appetizer or a drink and a dessert. I just think it's really fun way to get like a full well-rounded view of the country and a taste of it. So when I got to Australia, I made a bunch of different things, and one of the things that I made was fairy bread, which is this really simple, it's hardly even a recipe, honestly. It's just a really simple dessert that they make for kids, like especially during birthday parties and things like that. It's a piece of white bread that they spread margarine or butter on and then sprinkles on top. So it's not
I
cooked,
could
it's
make
not
that. I could do
toasted.
that.
Yeah, it's easy. It's so easy. So it like I said, it's hardly even a recipe. It's just like you just make a piece of bread. And so when I was making that recipe, I do a lot of research when it comes to making the recipes from the countries that I'm cooking. And so I watch YouTube videos and I talk to locals from the country and I do a lot of research to make sure that I'm honoring the recipes in the country. And so when I was looking up how to make fairy bread, because even though it's so simple, I still wanted to watch videos, make sure I got it right. There was a woman on YouTube that was from Australia. She's making it for her kids. And she said, I'm going to cut off the crusts on the fairy bread because my kids don't like the crust. And I thought that was a really good idea because kids don't always like crusts. So when I made the fairy bread, I cut off the crusts and I posted it on TikTok. And Australia has very strong feelings about if the crusts should be on or off the fairy bread. I started getting a
Wow.
lot of comments about the fact that I cut the crust off. It was blasphemous and that was the worst thing I could possibly do. So that was really funny in itself, but then it really just blew up even more out of control after that. I got invited on Australia Talk Radio to discuss the fairy bread drama and confess to my sins for cutting the crust off. Yeah, I got featured in the Daily Mail. This said like food blogger something about makes Australia mad or something with cutting off the crust. And then the cherry on top of that was that similar to how America has the Today Show or the morning show, Australia has Sunrise on Sunrise. And that's their very popular morning show. And they did a whole segment on my video and if crust should be on or
Awesome.
off fairy bread. So it was very, it was a really unique experience. It was very funny.
That's awesome. I will say, though, that you're bringing up an example of something that I've talked with other influencers about, which is the good and the bad of going viral.
Oh, yeah.
And that
There's
the
certainly
good is
upsides.
obviously that a lot more people see your content and you work hard on your content. You
Mhm.
want people to see it. So that's the positive, of course, and the benefit of all of that. But the downside is everyone has an opinion and those opinions can be pretty harsh. Do you think that female influencers in particular, because I know this was not necessarily related to being a female influencer, but one of the things that we are trying to understand better is, are female influencers treated differently? Do they get different comments, types of comments than male influencers do? And what does that look like?
Yes, I don't know if I can pinpoint negative comments, public comments that stem from the fact that I'm a female. When you go viral, you're bound to have negative comments. And so I do receive those just like anybody else that has a video. But I don't think I can publicly route any of the negative comments back to the fact that I'm a female. I will say, I think as a female content creator, you're a lot more likely to get DMs from like creepy guys. I do think I have to delete a lot of DMs from like weirdos that want to slide in there. So I think that's one thing that content creators have to deal with. And then another thing that kind of comes to mind is the fact that, and I don't know, but I think that my content, at least in my opinion, is universally enjoyable. I would think that both males and females would like food, to learn about the world. I don't think that's inherently a female topic, but a lot of my audience is female. The majority of my audience is female, like almost 90%. And
Mhm.
I would be curious to see a male food blogger or a male food content creator if they have a more even split and if men are less
Mm.
likely to follow a female content creator. I don't
Mm.
know, but it seems that way. So I'm not sure, but that is something that kind of came to mind as well.
Yeah. Well, I guess a year after you started your blog, you were featured on BuzzFeed as one of the winners of the 2019 Savor Blog Awards, right? Can you talk about what effect of that type of publicity works for you?
Yes. First of all, I'll just clarify. So I was featured on BuzzFeed for a recipe that I made, but the Saveur Blog Awards were something different. So I was
Mhm.
featured in Saveur magazine and I won the 2019 Blog Award for Most Groundbreaking Voice, which
Mhm.
was incredible and amazing and exactly what I needed in that moment because I had been struggling with the idea that my blog wasn't taking off as fast as I wanted. And then right when I was like feeling really down about it, I won that blog award and that just
Mhm.
really put a lot of wind in my sails and
Mhm.
changed my
Mhm.
trajectory, I think, a little bit. I'd personally say that it gave me a lot of encouragement. But then, in terms of how it affected my business, I would say that some of the biggest things were I had some more brand recognition and some more legitimacy to my brand. And also, something else that came from both BuzzFeed and Saveur is that it helped increase my domain authority a lot for my website. So, domain
Mhm.
authority for people that are
Mm.
listening and don't quite know what that is. Domain authority is basically a term that describes how important or experienced Google thinks you are. And so
Mhm.
they will give you, Google actually doesn't give you the rating, it's a made up metric, but they've figured out a way for bloggers to know where they stand. Where if you have a higher domain authority, Google sees you as more of an expert in your field. And then every time you publish a post, they will value your content more than they
Mm.
value a site that has lesser domain authority. And so the
Yeah.
way that Google determines how trustworthy they think your site is if one of the main reasons is if you have a lot of backlinks to you from high authority sites. So, for
Yep.
example, BuzzFeed is a huge website, Saveur is a huge
Mhm.
website, and they're really important in the online space. And so,
Mhm.
the fact that they linked to my little tiny blog made Google see me as more important than it had previously seen me. And
Yep.
so, it kind of boosted the strength of my website, which means that every time I made content after that, it was had an easier time ranking number one on Google than it had
Yeah.
before. So I think that was really
Mhm.
important as well.
That is so helpful because I think, again, it goes back to people understanding that creators and influencers having a blog is such an important part of monetization of the content you work so hard to create.
Absolutely.
You're creating this content. So why just put it out on social when you can also have an owned, like I
Yeah.
think of your blog, it's you own it. Nobody can go in and switch it off for you or change something the way that can happen on Meta or meaning on Instagram or on TikTok or the other platforms. And the fact that you're also so early in probably the growth of where you're going to go with all of this, right? You have so much runway ahead of you. And the fact that you're realizing the blog is so important in terms of how you can monetize, I think is a great lesson for other creators and other influencers.
Thank you so much. I would recommend it to anyone that's interested in becoming a content creator. You should always have a blog to go alongside what you're doing because it's just, yeah, like you mentioned, for all of those reasons, it's very important.
Yeah. Talk about, if you can, the recent trip you took to Bali and what that was like for you and how it went for you.
Yeah, it was actually my honeymoon. So I got married, my husband and I got married about a month ago. And I have always wanted to go to either Indonesia or Thailand. I know they're different, but in my head, because I haven't been anywhere close to that region of the world, they felt rather similar. And I had been really excited to see Asia. I've never been to Asia before. And I love to travel. I've done a lot of travel in Europe and I've done some travel in South America and North America, United States, obviously. So when we were looking for or places we wanted to go. We thought that Bali seemed like a very good honeymoon location in terms of you can relax and enjoy yourself, and it's rather inexpensive too. But also you can do a lot of like fun adventurous things and have kind of some luxury for not that expensive. So that's why we picked it, and it was incredible. I'm posting about it right now on my social media and recapping each day now that we're home and I have time to edit
Mhm.
those videos and things. But yeah, it was incredible. We loved it a lot.
You've got this great idea, right? Which is that you recognize the value of becoming close to a country that you're visiting or someplace, learning so much about it by understanding the food culture, which
Mhm.
I think is so smart and it's so true, right? If you've ever been anywhere and traveling, you do learn so much
Yeah.
about a culture based on the food, like why that place uses certain spices, why they use certain ingredients, and there's so much behind that. And I'm curious, how do you source the recipes that, because you've got to come up with so many different recipes. How do you source the recipes?
Okay, so it's a big process actually. It's a lot of work, but it's definitely worth all of the work that goes into it. So I'm cooking the countries in alphabetical order. So I started with Afghanistan. That's the first one in alphabetical order. I'm now on the K's right now. I'm working on Kyrgyzstan. And I do about one country every 2 weeks. And so when I get to each of the countries, I try to figure out some of the popular recipes from that country, either by Googling or going on TikTok or anything like that. And then when it comes time to research the recipe, I have a 3-step process. So the first thing that I do is I go on YouTube and I look up videos of locals making that recipe. And I watch a bunch of videos because, as somebody that is publishing these recipes on my website, I don't want to just take someone else's recipe and plagiarize it and then use that exact thing and put it on my own website, because that's not fair. So, what I do instead is I watch a bunch of YouTube videos and figure out the through lines, figure out all of the common ingredients, figure out the common cooking methods and the ratios and those kinds of things. And then
Mhm.
I take some elements of this, some elements of that, some overarching elements that are in all of them, and put it
Mhm.
together into what I think is a good dish that represents the country. And then what I do from there is I will then go and try as hard as I possibly can. Sometimes it's almost impossible, but I try as hard as I can to find a local from the country that will look over the recipe and make sure that what I thought was a good representation of the recipe actually is a good representation, because sometimes we're human, we make mistakes. So I try to have everyone, or try to have someone from the country look it over and make sure that everything's okay. And then from there, I have some specialty grocery stores in town that I always know if I need something from Asian cuisine, I always go to this place. If I need something Caribbean, I always go to this place. And then I rely heavily on Amazon to import the rest of the ingredients that I need.
Mhm. I love that you have a process for it, that there is a lot of integrity in how you do it and how you approach it. It's such a smart idea. I think to myself too, the element of what you're saying about how much you can learn about a place from their food and this journey you're on to go get through all of the countries. And then if you've been doing it a while, I love that. All right, what are you most excited about that's coming up for you next?
I think in general, honestly, I'm just excited to really like dive headfirst back into my business. I felt disconnected from it for the last couple of months because of, I know I
Mhm.
mentioned it a bunch of times, sorry, but the fact that we've had just had a lot going on this year.
Yeah.
And now that everything is really calmed down, when we were on our honeymoon, actually, I just felt like all of the inspiration and motivation and ideas that I had felt like devoid of for the last 4, 5, 6 months. They all just hit me while we were relaxing. And I was like, oh my gosh, I
Mhm.
can't wait to go home and like parse through these ideas, figure out how I want to move forward. I have some new business ideas that I'm thinking of. Nothing I'm ready to announce yet, but I am just really excited to dive back into that excitement and motivation for my business. That's what I have in the works for the next year. Nothing crazy, but I love it. So it's okay.
Yeah, and I think it's also such a great reminder about how going to another place, and you don't have to go as far as Bali, just somewhere else, like putting yourself in another place,
Mhm.
how that also can stimulate your creativity, right?
Yes.
It's unbelievable. So yes, you were also in a mind state of being more relaxed,
Yeah.
but being in these other places, it just also inspires that creativity. So I love that. I love that is something that you are using to inspire the next phase of what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Alexandria, if people want to follow you, what is the best way for them to do that?
Yes, on all the social medias, I am at the Foreign Fork, like a foreign country. And so you can follow me there. And then you can also visit my website, which is www.foreignfork.com. And lastly, I have a cookbook that I put out at the end of last year. It's called Culture for Your Kitchen. And
Oh, I
it's a
love
cookbook
that.
of 31 national dishes and popular recipes from all around the world. So if you go to my website, you will see a banner where you can purchase the cookbook too if you're interested in cooking around the world from your kitchen.
I am so excited that you have so much still ahead of you with this and so much opportunity. Thank you for spending this time with us. And I can't wait for people to hear this episode.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun. I love talking about blogging. I could do it all the time. So I really enjoyed this episode. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. If you're an influencer or a brand that wants to work with us, please feel free to email us at info@shespeaks.com. Until next time.